Hey, it's Braden, and I'm here with what's your name? Aaron Gomez,
All
right?
right, there it is.
And this is
Wait a minute, Doc. Are you telling me you built a time machine? My mom always said life was like a box of chocolate. Stop, do something! Help, please, mercy.
Absolutely.
Godsmack.
how are you today, Aaron?
Today I'm decent. I've been going through a little bit of a rough patch lately. 2020.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
I gotta say, I think I'm the only one who's suffering this year.
Yeah, yeah, I'm doing just fine. So I
I
don't know
didn't
what's going
ask.
on over there with
I
you,
didn't.
but yeah, you definitely sound different than the last few episodes.
Yeah,
I don't know what's going on there.
yeah, I matured a little bit.
Guest star, guest host, guest speaker. I don't know. What would you label yourself as?
Guest professor.
Yes, guest professor from the University of something or other, and you're here to fill in for Logan, who's on vacation right now, I guess.
Yeah,
And so,
very large shoes to fill. I
exactly.
know you're
I don't
listening,
know what his
Logan.
size is.
What's up?
So
I brought something to honor both him and you.
go ahead.
Look at.
I think we have a rule: no more
I
clicking.
think
So
so. I think you should just embrace it. I feel like if you ever like have do you have any plans to do video for this podcast?
we're looking into it. Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people do want to see my face, so
I feel like if you
um,
ever did video, you should like build a set to do it, and
that's true.
like in the background, you should just have like a mouse with like a megaphone right next to it,
That
just
would be
because it's
awesome.
an icon.
Just yeah, that's a lot of training involved. I don't know how to train any mouse to do that, but it's good to think
You
about.
just kill it.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't think about that. So, let's see. Any laundry to clean up?
No.
Oh, so just really quick, a little bit about yourself.
Hmm.
How did you come up with the intro? I think
Mm,
people are curious about that.
interesting question. Yeah, so I do a little bit of I don't know what to call it. Not really music producing. Audio engineering, I guess, is the technical term. But anyway, I dabble in it in like music synthesizing and things like that. And so I, started listening to your podcast and I noticed that every episode you would have new intro music and I was like, this poor guy, he needs help. So I so I just started like playing around with it and I was like I just wanted something relatively catchy, something that people could hear the melody to and recognize it. And then like
Right.
on top of that, it was just this is a movie based podcast, so I threw in a lot of iconic quotes from movies, kind of made them sound. Most of them were vintage, but the ones that weren't, I just kind of gave them that feel. There's a slight nod in there to a very particular song from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. I don't know if people caught on to that, but it's there.
So, so the only things that I've been able to pick out,
Hmm.
and I haven't really tried too hard, but I know you've got Back to the Future
Hmm.
at the beginning,
Yeah,
and you got Forrest Gump in
yeah.
there, and then I believe you got the Gob from Gobsmacked from Willy Wonka. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the gob in Gobsmacked is from Willy Wonka. There's a fun fact about the smack part. I guess it's kind of like a two part fun fact. I kind of don't want to say it because I feel like if I say it, people will not be able to not hear it this way. Like if I tell you how that sound was composed, because when you just hear it played through, it sounds like absolutely gobsmacked. But the
Mm-hmm.
the way that smacked was composed, it's just kind of like a trick on your brain. But I will say this: it comes from a vintage television commercial. Yeah,
Really?
vintage
Wow.
television commercial. The absolutely is Jim Halpert from The Office.
Wow.
Yeah,
I did not know that.
yeah.
That's pretty
Well,
cool.
that's my favorite TV show.
Yeah.
And I just thought I was trying to think of where I could find a movie quote or a TV quote where somebody said absolutely, and that was the first thing that popped into my head. I'm sure,
Is that the scene where Dwight asks him to join him?
yeah,
Like
the
yeah,
Alliance.
like
Yeah,
yeah, the alliance.
yeah,
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
absolutely, I do. Yeah.
So that's genius. What about the other parts before absolutely gobsmacked? What are the lines that I missed?
Let me think. So there is a quote in there from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. It's Augustus Gloop's mom. She says you need to help him do something. It's something of that sort. I'm not quoting verbatim,
Oh,
but
okay.
she's the one saying that, and then Willy Wonka responds, "Help, police, murder." So
Oh, that's where that's
yeah.
from.
So
Okay, that's
that
right.
whole part is from there.
And you think anyone would be able to guess where the smacked comes from, even
Uh.
with the hint you gave them?
I don't think so. I don't know. I'd be surprised. How many listeners do you have? Like 12?
Yeah, 12 and a half.
Who's the half? No, so like
One of the Oompa Loompas
no, I
decided
you
to.
know, it probably wouldn't be that hard to find. Just a little bit of research. But yeah. And like the nod that I said to Willy Wonka was not the quote. The quote is very clear. But musically there is a nod to Willy Wonka. I don't know, Braden, did you pick up on that?
No, I
No?
didn't
Okay.
actually.
Yeah. So it's within the first 7 seconds.
Oh, you know what? Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Of course. It's the pure imagination
Yeah.
jingle at the beginning,
Mhm.
right? Yeah, I did pick up that. I don't know why I didn't think about
Yeah.
that. Yeah, that's the first thing I noticed. And pretty cool.
Yeah, so
I
that was
mean,
it.
one of the most popular, well-known jingles at the beginning of a song, I
Yeah.
guess. So, all right. Well, now that we've got all that garbage over
Yeah.
with, and I have to tell everyone the true story is, Aaron texted me saying your music is garbage. Here's something from what I remember, or something along
That's
the
a
lines of that.
summary. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah. Your music is garbage. Here's something better.
yeah. Was that
But
the actual I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. I,
I don't know.
let
I
me
don't
try to
know
look
what
for it
exactly
now.
you said, but that's how I translated it.
I mean, I understand. You're a sensitive being, you know.
Yes, I cried a little bit, but I appreciate the gesture.
Yeah.
So I think we can just go ahead and get into
Let's
it.
do it.
Today we're going to be talking about
I'm sorry. I just found the text. It said, I got tired of hearing your random I got tired of hearing your random intro music. So here's this if you want it."
Yes, very grumpy mood that
Good
day.
times.
Yeah, that was a while back.
Mhm.
So I have to preface this episode with saying that this is not the first time we've discussed this topic before.
Unfortunately, no.
Yeah, some good memories there back in high school for me, at least.
Were you in high school?
I was in 10th
You
grade.
know what?
Yeah.
I'm gonna let you go ahead and say it, and then I'm gonna tell people how old I was.
So, from what I remember,
Uh-huh.
we decided to start a little local, was it newspaper business?
Well, that
magazine
wasn't
business, right?
the start of it though. That was kind of like an expansion of the pipe dream.
So, what started it?
So, my personal opinion, I don't even know for sure. My
Mhm.
opinion is that you saw the movie that we're about to talk about today, and you got
Yes.
inspired, and then you in turn inspired me to take up journalism.
Yes, that's right.
And
Which you now major in, correct?
yeah, right. Absolutely. I'm a professional journalist. I don't even major in it.
Professor journalist.
No, so we decided to start taking up journalism as a hobby. Do you remember the name of it? I remember the name of it. I feel like I had the cover for a long time. It was Aspiring Times.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
We even had an email
We
for
had
it,
an
everything.
email, yeah. No, but
Aspiring
before
Times.
we did that, we're gonna freelance, right?
Yes, that's right.
And we spent days calling up newspapers and magazines, and not small time ones. No, we went straight to the top. We were calling New York Times, Who else did we call? I feel like we called
We
everybody.
called the New Republic. We called the New
We
Republic.
called everybody. No, we called everybody, and we emailed them, and we were trying to get in touch with their editors, and just saying, "Hey, we have this article, this one article that we wrote, and we'd like to submit it, and we think that this is 100% worth your time, and your readers would love to read this, even though it's not contemporary news. This happened years ago, but we think that people would still be interested in it." And
Well, I was so interested in it at the time because of the movie. I thought, wow,
but
all
it's
these
not.
people missing out.
But it's not even like the movie was new.
Right? No, it wasn't.
But we
it's
were
just
just
we happened to upon
we
it.
were just so ignorant, and we thought that that's how journalism worked, and it's not at all how it worked. So yeah, then afterwards we decided to start our own. I don't even remember if it was. I'm pretty sure it was going to be a magazine. We were going to try to do a
Yeah.
magazine.
I think we skipped down on the part where we actually wrote a little piece on the real life story of Shattered Glass,
Mhm.
which is the movie we're going to talk about,
Mhm.
the story of Stephen Glass and how he fabricated. Well, we'll get into
Yeah.
it, but he was a big liar.
Yeah.
That's
And so
that's
I
what I'll
think
preface it.
when this all happened, I was probably like 8 years old, if I remember
No,
correctly.
you were older than
No.
that. No.
Well, I like to remember it being as 8 years old because
You were like in middle
I
school. You were
cannot.
not 8 years old.
No, I will not admit to being over 12 years old when this happened.
Why not? I think this was really, really just. These are some aspiring times.
You know,
we're talking
if
about here.
anything, it was a clear indication of our entrepreneurial spirit. That's
true.
what it was.
I think you should be proud of that, though. We were very ambitious, and we definitely did not settle for anything less than the best.
You know, and I remember we had discussions about it, and we were like, let's start at the top and work our way down. That way.
And I think the farthest down we got to was San Antonio. I don't even think we tried the Monitor, which was the
local paper. Yeah.
But I remember just getting berated a few times by people that felt we were wasting their time based on the subject.
Yeah.
Subject of the article. It was old news.
And we definitely were.
But at the time, it was like, why aren't these people giving us a chance? We have something genius on our hands.
Mm-hmm. All we need is a chance. Chicken Little story.
Yeah, that's true. Those were good times back when we had hope. Yeah, so we wrote that article. Do you still have it?
No. I hope not.
I don't either.
I hope not.
It might still. I don't know.
I think I had it for a good amount of time though. I feel like I remember maybe like two or 3 years ago I stumbled upon it, and I stumbled upon like all the concept art that we had for our magazine.
Really?
Yeah.
So I haven't read it since around that time period.
Oh, it was awful.
Was it any
no,
good?
it was. No, it was like, you know what it was? Is we weren't journalists. We weren't breaking a story. So it felt like an essay. It felt like I was.
Well, that's what we were doing in school. I blame the teachers and the school system.
That's true. I just feel like it was something that we would have turned in for like a B+.
Well,
I feel like you've romanticized these memories, and you're just.
You know what? You know what it is. I need to read it again.
Yeah, you do.
Because all I think is, I'm sure it wasn't as good as we thought it was, but I really need to read it again. I mean, we sent it to an adult to proofread it, so I mean, it had to be decent, right?
Can we stop talking about this?
Those were good times. Okay,
Yeah,
we had
memories.
dreams and hopes, and those were fun.
Yeah.
But I guess, I don't know if this is a spoiler alert, but we never ended up publishing it anywhere.
Spoilers, we're not famous journalists.
Yeah, so I'm stuck doing this now.
Yeah.
500 years later.
And I'm stuck doing this on a free day. I have nothing else to do.
So let's get into the movie. I think most people have stopped listening, but for those of you who stuck around, thank you. I think that this movie is definitely can be considered an independent movie, something that's not really so mainstream that a lot of people have even seen it or heard of it. Shattered Glass. So first of all, I will preface it by saying that I love this movie, and I think you do
Yeah,
too. I mean,
yeah, great
it's a
movie.
great movie.
Hmm.
Yeah. Starring Anakin Skywalker,
The
Hayden
Chosen
Christensen
One.
himself. His performance in this movie is, in my opinion, really
Oh,
good. What do you
it's the
think?
pinnacle of his career for sure. No, and I don't mean that in a bad way. That could be taken negatively because this movie came out in 2003. But obviously, he's not acting anymore. He's kind of retired from that side of life. Unless who knows what's happening with Star Wars in the future. I feel like he could come back for that. But I think this is the best acting performance that he's given. Granted, and you could keep talking about the reasons why, but I feel like the writing and the dialogue that they gave him a lot to work with
Right.
compared to what he's had before.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's a lot of people that see Star Wars and think that he couldn't act or that he was overacting in episode 2 and 3. But I feel like if you think Hayden Christensen can't act, this is a good movie to watch because he
Mm-hmm.
gives an amazing performance in this movie.
Yeah, well, I think it's a perfect storm. Star Wars is a perfect storm of bad writing and bad directing.
Awful dialogue in episode 2 specifically. I'll say that.
Right, yeah.
Have you recently rewatched the Star Wars prequels?
Not like the past month or so, but past few years I have
Yeah,
seen them. It's pretty bad. A lot of the dialogue.
episode 2
Um,
is hilarious. I
yeah,
can't watch that movie with a straight face.
no, but he does do a really good job in this movie. I mean, great directing, great writing can really help.
Hmm.
But I think the character really fits, I guess, his style.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes
No,
sense,
yeah.
but I think it was a good casting decision and very believable. And I don't mean that you can believe that he's Stephen Glass is what I'm trying to
Yeah.
say. You can believe that he's the character. But I gotta say, he's not the highlight of this movie. Okay, personally, to me, it's his best performance of his career. But Peter Sarsgaard, who plays the character of Charles Lane, and we'll get into who that is in a little bit. To me, this is, and I don't want to blow things out of proportions. Okay, and I don't mean to be biased or anything of that sort. But to me, this performance is one of the best performances in a movie that I've seen, and I truly think it's one of the most underrated performances of any movie that I've seen. What do you think,
No,
Aaron? About
I could. I think that's a perfectly valid opinion. I don't know that I'm ready to make a statement like that. I definitely would have to give a lot more thought to it, and think about some of the greatest performances that I've seen over the years. But that just off the top of my head, that's a perfectly valid opinion. He gives an amazing performance, and just to clarify, I think we've definitely alluded to it, but this was obviously a movie following the events of Stephen Glass, who was a reporter or journalist for the New Republic who fabricated many of his articles. You have Hayden Christensen on the one hand, who gives this performance, and at times you may see it as being a bit eccentric, but he did a great job portraying who Stephen Glass actually was. And then, yeah, it's like you said, on the other hand, with Peter Sarsgaard, this movie was definitely a smaller film. It didn't have a super wide release or anything. But all the awards that it got nominated for were pretty much Peter Sarsgaard. Like,
yeah,
and this man, he got nominated for pretty much every award short of an Oscar.
right. I mean, a Golden Globe even
Hmm.
for Best Supporting
Yeah.
Actor, which I truly think he should have won, and he should have won an Oscar. But that's my opinion,
I didn't
obviously.
see who he was going up against for those particular categories, though.
The winner of that Golden Globe that year was Tim Robbins, who ended up winning the Oscar for Mystic River.
Mm.
But he was going up against some pretty good actors. Albert Finney in Big Fish, which was a good
Right.
performance. That was a good
Yeah.
movie. William H. Massey in Seabiscuit. I haven't seen Seabiscuit in a
Man,
long
these
time,
movies
but I
are
know.
old.
Yeah. And then, Alec Baldwin in the movie The Cooler, which I've never seen, and Ken Watanabe in The Last Samurai. So, some Asian guy. Yeah, I mean, he should have
I
won, in
think,
my
yeah.
opinion.
Based on that list, I feel like he gave a performance that could definitely, compete against all of those guys.
Yeah. I do think so, and we'll get into it. Okay, we'll get into the movie, and I'll kind of go into why he's just so good in this movie.
Right.
Yet it's not a bombastic,
No, not at
a
all.
huge role. It's very subtle.
Yep.
It's a very subtle
Yep.
role, and that's what I think is really impressive about it. So, the movie starts off with Hayden Christensen as Stephen Glass. Hayden Christensen or Stephen Glass, we'll start calling them by their characters' names. And he's at this convention. It was like a what is it like a political
Yeah.
convention?
Hmm.
He's kind of narrating, and he's imagining himself there because we'll come to find out that that actually never happened. So he was never actually there. It was kind of all in his imagination, his make believe. But that's kind of how the movie starts. I'll kind of skip through here the boring parts at the beginning.
Can I say something really quick about the beginning?
Sure,
And
sure, go ahead.
I just thought this was funny because again, I love this movie, but at the very beginning, even before you see Stephen Glass, they do a very classic kind of biopic,
Oh, that's
thing
true.
where they give you some facts about the context about what's happening, and so like the very beginning is like the New Republic was first published in 1914, blah 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 blah. They say in 1998, which is basically, I think this movie has some moments that take place a little bit before 98, but for the most part, we're set in 1998,
Exactly.
which is when these events happen. But they say in 1998, the New Republic had 15 writers slash editors with a median age of 26, and the youngest among them was Stephen Glass. Now, if you just look at that, you're like, oh wow, so he was the youngest writer on the New Republic staff. That's pretty cool, and it is cool. But just a little quick math lesson for anyone who doesn't know what a median is. A median, just as an example, if you have a set of 5 numbers and the numbers are 1 through 5,
Right.
then the median would be 3. Because if you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the number right in the middle is your median. On the other hand,
Right. It's not the average. It's
it's
not
not the
at
average, right? And so like if you had, say you had that same set of 5 numbers and you had 1, 1, 3, 3, 5, like those were your 5 numbers, the median would still be 3 because that's the number that falls right in the middle.
right.
Well, so I was just thinking about this because they tell you that the median age is 26. If you do any bit of research on Stephen Glass in 1998, he was 25. So I was like, what are they trying? Are they trying to fool me here? Like, make me think he was some like prodigy writer? Because like, if there was 15 writers, was he 25 and like 13 of them were 26, and then the last one was 27?
Yeah, I see what you mean. It's a
I
little
just thought it.
misleading.
I just thought it was hilarious. Anyway,
Yeah.
continue. Yeah, continue.
Well, it's easy to be like, "Wow, that's cool." People, I'm guarantee you, a lot of people will get that confused, but that's the average age
Yeah.
of people working there. So,
But they don't tell you that he was 25 either. They
right.
just tell you the median age was 26. The youngest among
So
them
it
was
definitely
Stephen.
makes it seem like he is younger than what he actually
Yeah.
is. I mean, he's still young though. I
He
mean,
was.
he's a
Yeah.
young guy.
Yeah.
Very talented in certain ways.
Yeah.
So, the what was it? The head editor, Michael Kelly,
Mhm. Yeah.
working there at the time, played by Hank Azaria. I mean, this was a pretty good cast. There's a lot of good
Yeah.
people, actors in this
Great
movie, and they did a
performance.
great job.
Yeah.
Michael Kelly was the head editor. He ends up getting fired because he doesn't get along with what was it, the CEO or the owner
Yeah.
of the magazine.
Mhm.
They don't get along, and there's a little fun fact here. They make it seem like he gets fired because he's defending his writers, right?
Right.
His journalists, his
Mhm.
reporters. But apparently, in real life, there was more politics behind the scenes that were involved there than that, um, as to the reason why he got let go. But the movie makes it seem like it was solely because he was defending his journalists. And if you watch the movie, you'll kind of see what kind of transpires there. But the owner is very very he's portrayed as very strict. I guess is the best word I can think of. He gets fired and he gets replaced as editor by Charles Lane, who was already working there at the time. But he just basically got a promotion. Now, I'll skip ahead real quick unless you have something to add.
No,
But
I just kind of to that point, not to take away or to go too far off track, but I do feel like this movie in a way is sort of presented to us through the eyes of Stephen Glass as well. So sure, like some of the things that they presented with Michael Kelly obviously could be, creative liberty, just making us believe that he was fired because he was defending his staff. But also that could have just been the way that Stephen Glass saw it. Obviously Stephen Glass is the narrator of this film. He's kind of the one telling the story. And so it's from his perspective too. He kind of did perceive, their owner to be a very strict individual who would have fired Michael Kelly for disagreeing with him and defending his staff. So, yeah, just as a brief
yeah,
aside there.
yeah, that's very possible, and that could be very much true, especially to that point. I do know that the director of the movie, Billy Ray,
Good
and
old
he
Billy
was
Ray
also
Cyrus.
yes, yeah, Miley Cyrus's father. No, I'm kidding. That's not the same Billy Ray.
No.
But Billy Ray, he wanted this to be as factually correct as possible,
Mhm.
like a really close to the vest, accurate movie, accurate portrayal. In fact, he even, Charles Lane was an advisor, I believe, on the
Right.
film, as was Adam Pennenberg, who's played by Steve Zahn, and he comes into the picture later. So there's a lot of things that they actually got correct from multiple point of views,
Yeah.
from multiple perspectives. But you're right. It is good to think that this is possibly a portrayal from the eyes of Stephen Glass here, as far as this particular
Yeah.
character, the
Mhm.
owner or whatever, the boss, the big guy, head honcho. So we go into, I'll skip ahead here, and they all kind of get into like this meeting room. It's like they have a little conference meeting, all the journalists and the head editor, Charles Lane, and they kind of go take turns telling people what they've been reporting on, or some stories that they were able to dig up. And so we skip to Stephen Glass, and he tells his story about what eventually he wrote to be titled Hack Heaven. Aaron, did you want to go ahead and tell us what Hack Heaven basically was about?
Man, okay, so in a nutshell, Hack Heaven was the last big article that Stephen Glass wrote for the New Republic that basically told the story about a young man named Ian Restel, who was actually a Russian immigrant, hacked into the website of a company called Juked Micronics. All of this supposedly, according to Stephen Glass, hacks into this company's website, posts a bunch of negative messages on their website, and basically shakes them down in order to remove the messages. And then again, according to Stephen Glass, this company wants to hire Ian Restel as a security consultant. And so he goes to a dinner with Juked Micronics and his agent and his mother, lists all of his demands. And that's basically the story. He comes out a hero for the National Hackers Association, an association invented by Stephen Glass, and is basically, he's the hero of all of these nationwide hackers.
After that, after they have the meeting, he goes back into the conference where all these hackers have gathered, and they're treating him like he's a rock star. Then Restel jumps up on a table and he's like, I want a Miata! He starts gyrating his hips like this. I want a Miata! I want a trip to Disney World. Show me the money! Show me the money! It's really silly, I know. I'm not even sure if I'm gonna finish it.
Very entertaining story, right?
Yeah, hilarious. Outrageous, in fact. Unbelievable.
Right. Something that would really catch a lot of people's attention, and a lot of readers, I'm sure, would enjoy that story, and it really helped put his name on the map, so to speak.
Mhm.
I mean, it was his last piece, and you'll see why in a little bit, but it was definitely his most popular piece. and so it'll bring a lot of attention. Okay, so he's pitching this story to everyone in the conference room, and everyone thinks it's hilarious. I mean, he's reenacting some of the scenes that he saw from his personal, account,
Hmm.
and it's a funny scene, very entertaining story. Looks like he's got a hit on his hand, right?
Yeah.
So he writes the story, publishes it, and it gets into the hands of Forbes,
Yeah.
right?
Next day, Forbes Digital Tool, which was the online counterpart of their magazine.
Yep. So what was the problem here? What ended up transpiring once it got into their
Well,
hands?
I think first of all, one of the things that the movie does really well, and credit to Billy Ray and his companion writer for what they did, they really did an amazing job of portraying Stephen Glass as a con artist. He really had an elaborate scam going here, and he knew how to play it because he was a very good storyteller. And so it's like you mentioned in the previous scene where we see him telling the story of Hack Heaven to everybody in the room. He's really selling it, and he comes across as a very humble writer. I think even towards when he's done saying it, he's like, I probably won't even finish it. It's not even good, and that's one of his common sayings in the film. And it just goes to show he really built a personality that people could trust in order to sell these stories that otherwise wouldn't be so easily accepted. They would be
Right.
scrutinized. So he builds that trust within his company, the New Republic, but outside of that, Forbes gets it, and they don't know him as that humble writer who's easy to trust. So
I have to add to that
yeah, go
point
ahead.
before you
Mhm.
can truly, in my opinion, this is one of the best performances displayed on film of a pathological
Oh,
liar.
absolutely. Yeah.
He does a really great job of showing the signs of a pathological
Hmm.
liar. A lot of the things that pathological liars say and do, Hayden Christensen really does a great job in displaying that on film. And for example, every time someone says, I need to speak to you or I need to talk to you, his response is, why are you mad at me?
Yeah.
Did I do something wrong?
Yeah.
Pathological liars, in their minds, the reason they lie in a lot of the cases, they feel like lying because makes them more likable
Right.
because they're trying to please people. They're people pleasers,
Hmm.
and he wants everyone to like him.
Yep.
So he is a likable guy, but he does it. He comes about it in a very, obviously sketchy way because he makes things up just so people can like him. Makes stories up. He, pleases people. He tells people what they want to
Yeah.
hear, right? And so that's really portrayed almost
Yeah.
perfectly in this movie. And you can see it just unravel what happens when the pathological liar is figured out and he's busted. If you want to see what would transpire when that happens, watch this movie.
Yeah.
It's really good.
No, 100% agree with you. And I guess, just to kind of talk to that a little bit before we keep going with the story, you can watch interviews of Stephen Glass, that happened after this movie came out, after the stories had broken about what happened with him and his career. And not only do you really see that Hayden Christensen was really portraying the personality of this individual very well, but, they'll ask him in interviews, were you a pathological liar? And he kind of ducks the question because he's had a lot of therapy take place
Yeah.
after these events, but he really was, and he talks about how he lied, just like you said, to get people to like him. He thought it would make people proud of him, and he was really building stories for that sole purpose. Lies grow, and he was really a clear indication of that. But yeah, so I guess to move on
Hmm.
with what happened at Forbes, they don't see Stephen Glass in all his humility and storytelling ability. They just see a story that they feel like they've been scooped on. They feel like they missed out on this amazing story, Hack Heaven, and they want to know why. So when they first get this story, their approach to it isn't to expose Stephen Glass. They actually want to write an article to match it. Of course, after it's already been reported on by Stephen Glass, but they basically want to match the article. And so they start fact checking it, trying to contact the same people that Stephen Glass did, and they notice some very big holes in the story.
What holes, Aaron? What holes?
Man, such as people not existing, companies
Wow,
not.
that's a big one.
I will say, I did find it funny, kind of the portrayal of this in the scene, because you have this montage with what's the actor's name? Steve Zahn, who plays
Yeah, Steve.
he plays Adam Pennenberg, who is basically the Forbes digital tool writer who was going to try to match the story. So he starts fact checking it, and the portrayal of this on screen is very good. But just from my, I'm going to show my age here, but just the way that he goes about fact checking this, I found this hilarious. And I don't even think it's with his performance. I just think it's just what I was seeing. Like he does an internet search, grant in 1998, right? An internet search in 1998 for, I believe he searched Juked Micronics. That's what he searched.
Well, so what's her name? The
Rosario Dawson's character, and
Rosario
Andy Fox.
She's the one who couldn't find anything on Juked Micronics, the actual company, and a few other people too. She tried to look for, and she basically reported back to him that there's no
Right.
sign of existence for this major software company,
Yeah.
quote unquote, right?
Uh-huh.
Supposedly. So she's the one who kind of reports some of this stuff. So he's not kind of doing it on his own.
Right.
He does a lot of it.
He thinks
And
he
he's
is.
kind of the
He thinks he is
Yeah.
for a while, but
Yeah, that's true.
But he does this internet search and on Yahoo, and it pulls up no results, and he gives like a very confused face. And I was just thinking, well, what was he expecting to find? This is 1998, and he's searching the internet.
There's like 5 articles.
I just don't know if that's a reason for suspicion, Like in 98, if I search Yahoo for something and I don't find anything, I wouldn't be confused. I would be like, well, I guess I have to go to the library.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's just more of an inconvenience than it is suspicious. But anyway, I found that funny.
At the same time, though, it's not like Juked Micronics is some family-owned
Right,
restaurant.
I know. I'm nitpicking for sure.
Yeah, no, it is a major software company, so they should have a website. But
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Speaking of the website,
okay, well, we'll get into that. We're not there yet.
we're not that far.
So Forbes bring this to the attention of Chuck Lane. Charles Lane, they call him Chuck, right? So they bring it to
Peter
his attention.
Sarsgaard's character.
Yeah, so he's not, it doesn't seem like he's suspicious yet. Obviously, he trusts his journalists. So he goes to Steven. He's like, hey, Steven, I just need a few numbers from some of your sources. I need some, Forbes guys are calling. They're asking for it. So Stephen Glass is like, well, yeah, I've got them, but they're at home. I'll give them to you tomorrow. So Chuck's like, cool, whatever. So then they also mention that there's no George Sims. That's one of the things they find, who's supposed to be the CEO of Juked Micronics, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things that Chuck asked Steven for, was a number for George Sims. They can't get a hold of him. And it's funny because throughout this movie, and so that I don't have to go detail by detail, you'll see that Steven continues to try to cover up his lies by adding more lies on top of it. And it's really fascinating to see how much of a hole he's digging himself into, and how it just all unravels at the end. But so he gets him a number, and so Chuck calls the number and gets a voicemail. It says, yes, this is George Sims of Juked Micronics, yada, yada, yada. And I found it funny that Steven was like, yeah, he's such a controlling CEO that he won't even have his own secretary set up the voicemail. He did it himself.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So then as Chuck's at home, in the evening with his wife and whatever, after work, he gets a call from George Sims. And George Sims is basically like, I'm not going to give you any sources. I didn't like the article you guys wrote, yada, yada. I sounded all mad and hung up on Chuck, right?
Mm-hmm.
So who was George Sims, Aaron? And if Juked Micronics didn't exist, why did George Sims end up calling him?
Right. And I think before I give the answer, I feel like this was definitely a credit to Stephen Glass in terms of how good of a storyteller he actually was. Like he did know how to build characters.
Yeah.
Say what you obviously what he did as a journalist was extremely inappropriate. But as a storyteller, it was very clever. Like he was building characters that he had in his own mind and putting them on paper and selling it as truth, which obviously it wasn't, but selling it as a truth that people could believe and a truth that people could swallow. So much credit to him there. But he gives so George Sims calls Chuck Lane, and we end up finding out that Stephen Glass had his brother pose as George Sims. And I don't know if you want me to get into this right now, but it's actually very interesting to hear the real life expressions of Chuck Lane as to how he found out that George Sims was
I think the best point to go into that is when
is
he
the reveal.
finally,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
the ultimate climax of the movie.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
which is just to me, this is supposed to be like a biopic, like just a drama,
Mhm.
but so tense. It starts to the tension starts to build here
Yeah.
because most people that watch the movie kind of know what the story is, but to see it, unravel on film, it's really tense. I mean, when you
Yeah.
try to put yourself into
It's hard to watch.
Stephen Glass's shoes, yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's a little nerve wracking, but
Yeah.
yeah. So Chuck's like, hey, I got the call from George Sims from Duke Mechanics. He calls Steve shortly after. Actually, he got the call, letting him know, and Steven's like, yeah. Basically, he's like, yeah, I told you so. I was right the
Yeah.
whole time. But yeah. So the next day they had a meeting. Was it the next day they had a meeting with Forbes?
Yeah.
I believe.
Yeah.
So.
This all happened very fast. Obviously, Forbes was trying to get their article out, and New Republic was trying to fact check as quickly as possible
Yeah,
to make sure that didn't happen.
because how this kind of happened with Forbes was, I guess, Steve Zahn's boss, Adam Pennenberg's boss, was basically like he read the article and he's like, hey, why didn't you get this? Like, how did you not,
Yeah.
get the story?
Mhm.
Pick this up. This is a great story. So they decide to look into it, and that's kind of how this starts to unravel at the beginning. And so they
Yeah.
have this meeting. It's this conference call. It's Forbes. It's between Forbes. So it's Steve Zahn. I'm naming the actor still. Steve Zahn, Rosario Dawson. So the girl that helped him out with the research. And then the head honcho, the boss over at the Forbes, whatever, the website. So it's a conference call. And they basically just start drilling Steven with questions, right? And so now Steven has to answer all of this with, he's got to give phone numbers, he's got to give addresses, he's got to give.
This is probably my favorite scene in the film. I don't know about you.
No, it's
but
not my favorite scene. We'll get into that, but yeah, it's one of them.
Yeah.
It's a great.
I think this was a great scene. Yeah, there's a moment in here where you talk about Peter Sarsgaard's acting performance. It's like how you said this was very subtle. He plays a very he gives almost a stoic performance of like simmering rage. But he has this, and at this point he's not infuriated. He's just hearing all of this.
He's starting to suspect, and that's what
Right.
Charles Lane, the real Charles Lane, mentions in the commentary, is that in this particular scene, the conference call, he's already starting to suspect something's right. He's starting to suspect the possibility that not only could Stephen Glass have been tricked into this story, right, or something was not right, but he was actually already starting to suspect that he was starting to make some of this up, right? But he's not sure.
And like in this conference call, I know there's one moment in particular. Basically, the guys at Forbes ask for Jim Gort's phone number, who was a character that Stephen Glass had written about in this article.
That's the agent, right? That was supposed to be the agent.
Yeah, that's the agent, Ian Restel's agent. who should supposedly be in Nevada, if I'm not mistaken. And so he starts giving them the number that he supposedly found in his notes. Right away, Adam Pennenberg says, wait, that area code's not Nevada. And at that moment, Stephen Glass is trying, he's grasping at straws to make up another lie.
Right.
To cover up why it's not Nevada. I think really the part, you have this close-up of Peter Sarsgaard, while in the background you hear Stephen Glass trying to build on this lie, and Peter Sarsgaard is just like, is this man lying right in front of me?
Yeah.
And he's just hearing this, and there's just this moment where he just says, Steve. That's all he says.
Mm-hmm.
And like you feel it, like it's an amazing performance.
Yeah, I don't know how
Peter
to explain
Sarsgaard.
it, but basically, how the best way I can describe it is when you start to see the tension. I don't know how to say it. The suspicions are starting to build up in his face.
Yeah,
the suspicions and the anger and the disappointment and all the possibilities.
Yeah,
are he's starting to eliminate the fact that this is truth, that any of this is true, and you can just, he doesn't have to say a word, or all he has to say is one word really, and you can just see it in his, I mean, he just, acting is reacting, and that's what this is the epitome of that.
Hey, do you guys still want that number for Jim Gort? Because I just found it in my notes.
Yeah, sure.
All right, 605-84.
Oh, wait.
Sorry?
605, that's not Nevada.
Oh. I guess I got him mixed up with another source. Sorry about that one. Oh, you know what it was? Jim Gort was actually the guy who told me about the law enforcement officials. I don't know what I was thinking. I'm gonna have to get you that.
Steve, give him the number.
And it's funny you mentioned the number, because this is right after he had given him the website to Juke Micronics, when he gives them the number to the agent. Mm-hmm. So the website for Juke Micronics, you want to go into that?
Oh, the website.
So what happened here with the website? This is before he gives them the number to Jim Gort. This is really where the tension was building here.
Yeah. No, the website was an amazing part of the story. It just goes to show again the lengths that Stephen Glass was willing to go to make people believe these stories. This wasn't just a simple case of a man telling a lie, but this was a man telling a lie and then doing things to make people believe that lie. And so he built a website for Juked Micronics. And it's very interesting because there's a scene that happens before this where one of the staff writers at New Republic, who I'm not sure was a real person, because I know some of the staff writers in this movie were made up and inspired by some of the actual staff writers at the time. But one of the staff writers comes in, brings Stephen Glass coffee, and in the background you can see Stephen Glass actually doing something sketchy on his computer. Well, he was actually building the website that we're now talking about. So he builds this website for Juked Micronics, which is basically a one-page website that is Times New Roman text, just... It says
through AOL, by the way.
Through AOL. Yeah, through AOL. It says Juked Micronics on it, gives a brief overview of what they do. This is a major software company, by the way. Gives a brief overview of what they do, and then has a note to the editor of the New Republic stating the disappointment that they have with the article that Stephen Glass wrote. However, so people at Forbes get this. Forbes is obviously a much more, at the time, was a much more ahead of the game technology-wise. They were doing an internet side to their magazine.
Right.
And so they instantly know this website is not legit. It's not even a question to them. Like they know,
have a website.
They have a website, and they know that this website was not legit. So they just say, looks awfully suspicious. It looks like a website that was created to fool somebody.
Yeah.
Um,
And then Chuck is like, well, I don't know much about computers, which is understandable in the
yeah,
90s. There's still a lot of
yeah,
adults
yeah.
who aren't computer savvy. So he's like, could you explain, how
And
easy would
even before that, Stephen Glass says, "I don't know why these guys had such a hard time finding the website." Like, first of all, it's open. It's only available to AOL members, and so he gives them the link directly, which is it's not even a .com link. I think it was a .html, which is basically just a straight shot to the code of the website.
I think
So
nowadays you could, with a website, it'd be easier to trick someone.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
back then, they got him. I mean,
I mean, he tried. He tried.
got it. Yeah, he gets an A for effort.
Yeah.
So.
Sorry about that. Did the fax come through okay?
Yes, it did. I think the address must have gotten garbled. We can't find the site.
Okay, you want to read it back to me?
Sure. You gave us members.aol.jukedn.html.
Wait, was that an M?
I'm sorry?
After juked, was that an M as in Micronics?
No, it was an N. As in not working.
Try M.
Okay.
Sorry about that. I was just rushing.
Of course.
But I do find myself wondering, Stephen.
Why would a major software company put their website where only AOL members can access it, as opposed to the entire web?
I have no idea. I don't have a website, so I don't really know that much about them. I would trust you guys to know better than me.
Okay.
Looks like we have the Juked website up now. I have to say, Stephen, this looks very suspicious to me.
How so?
Well, quite frankly, it doesn't look like a real website.
Looks like a site that was created to fool someone.
I don't know much about computers. Could somebody do that?
Of course.
Very easily.
So easily, in fact, it's incredible.
So basically, he's got the fake website and the phone number doesn't add up. So Chuck, as you mentioned, tension's building, and all of a sudden he just says Steve, and he doesn't even have to shout it. It's just very, very
Yeah, subtle.
Steve. Give him the number. Just give him the right number.
Mm-hmm.
They need the right sources. But at this point, he's just like we're in a pickle here. So it's just really cool to see this unfold, because it's like this really happened. I mean, this is a true story, and they're getting it pretty spot on according to the sources.
Yeah.
So they ask him, given all the nature of all of this, what do you have to say for yourself, Stephen? The Forbes guys are asking him that over the phone, and he's like, well, given the circumstances and that I've only been able to, they've only reached out to me, I haven't been able to reach them. I just get their voicemail. Sounds like I've been basically duped, right? It's he's basically making it out to like it didn't happen, but he didn't make it up. It was a lot of this is fake information. The phone numbers they gave him, the website was all to trick him. So that's the insinuation right at this point.
Which also it is indicated in the film, but I think like if you kind of blink, you miss it. But this was also not if you blink, you miss it, but you could easily draw the wrong interpretation of what was happening. I guess not only did Stephen Glass say that he believed he was duped, but people at Forbes and also Chuck Lane. If you listen to some of Chuck Lane's commentary or interviews that he's done, he actually also believed that this was more likely an incident of his writer being duped. And obviously, still you still get into some trouble for that because you're not doing your due diligence as a reporter.
Right.
But it's definitely less serious than making this up. So they did, and Chuck Lane in real life talks about how it's a very serious accusation to say that somebody is completely making up an article. So he's saying from at this point, when they're accusing him of this, you can't just accuse them of it and say, prove to me that you didn't make this up. You need to accuse them of it and prove to them that they did make it up.
Right.
So at this point, since they can't really prove that he made it up, they are leaning towards the fact that he probably just got fooled. They still at this point don't know that it was completely made up.
Exactly. So there's that. So that ends, and I don't want to get into detail by detail every scene, but basically it's starting to unravel, and Chuck Lane is starting to realize it's not just that he was duped. I mean, he's starting to cover up things. He figured out that George Sims was actually Steven's brother, and that Steven made up the website. And so Forbes already, I think, is a little ahead of them in figuring out that this guy's making stuff up, and this never happened. But now Chuck's starting to realize it. So at the very climax of the film, I'm skipping ahead here, of course, but Chuck's like, we need to go to Bethsaida. Is that how you pronounce it?
Bethesda.
Maryland? Bethesda. Bethsaida. Bethesda. Sorry, I mispronounced it. Bethesda, Maryland.
English is hard.
Yes, yeah. So is every other language. So they make the drive over there. Okay, and we'll get into that a little bit. But this scene is my favorite scene. Okay, this is where I think Peter Sarsgaard, it's the pinnacle of his performance in the movie. Is they go to the hotel, the supposed hotel where the convention was held. They go in, and he's like, "This is the hotel we're supposed to be at." He's like, "Yeah," and Steven, they walk up to a table at the hotel, or yeah, it's a hotel, right? Or
yeah,
and
I believe so. Yeah,
they go to one of the dining tables, and Steven's like, "This is where I sat. This is where Ian Restel sat. His agent, the CEO of Juke Micronics, George Sims." He's laying it all out for.
yeah.
And he's pulling this out of his butt, basically. He's just making it up on the spot.
Yeah.
And he's trying to explain to Chuck, and Chuck's kind of reading into it. It's like, oh, come on, dude. So they walk up the stairs, and he's like, 200 people were here in this area.
Yeah.
And it's not a tiny lobby, but 200 people will be crowded in this area.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, yeah, they were going in and out. You know how liars will try to make sense of what their lie and try to explain it away. Peter Sarsgaard, he doesn't have to say a word. He's just looking around and realizing this is just a bunch of garbage, right? But he doesn't have to say anything. He doesn't. He says it with his acting, and it's just so like I think it's amazing. But so he goes over. He asks the security guard there at the help desk, "Excuse me, sir, hacker convention a couple Sundays ago. Can you tell me about that?" And the black security guard is like, "Are you sure you got the right place?" He's like, "Why is that?" And then Steven's trying to like cut him off, like, "Yes, it happened. I was here." But Chuck's like, "Why? Why would you? Why is that a problem? Like, what's going on here?" And the security guard's like, "We're closed on Sundays."
Yeah, and then he subtly gets force choked.
No, so Peter Sarsgaard's stare here. He looks from the security guard, and he brings his eyes slowly up to Steven. And it's like a death stare. It's what you call a Stanley Kubrick stare.
Yeah.
It's the infamous Kubrick stare where he stares at him and he just murders him on the spot with his eyes. I mean, that's the best way I can describe it.
And I mean, you talk about how one actor can make another actor better. This is the kind of instance of that. Because if I was standing there and I saw Peter Sarsgaard stare at me like that, I might be acting, but you could guarantee that some of the uncomfortability that I'm feeling is genuine.
Yeah. The poop is real. That's coming down the leg.
That's one way of putting it.
Yeah, I mean, he just wow. If someone can fight me on this, I don't care. Single greatest stare in movie history.
Okay.
So
no one's gonna fight you on that, Braden.
You never know. People are crazy.
We're looking into a conference that was held here a couple Sundays ago with computer hackers. You remember anything like that?
Are you sure you're in the right building, sir?
Yes, we're sure. Why is that?
Building's closed on Sunday.
All I know is I was here. The conference was right here. That's why the Restles only stayed a few minutes, okay? Because it was such a dumb place to squeeze into. So they went to a restaurant for dinner with some of Ian's hacker friends.
Thank you.
So they go across the street to the restaurant supposedly they went to eat dinner at.
What
right
about
after.
what about hang on? What about the stare that Anakin gives Padme in Episode 2?
It's funny because either he got it from him or him got it from he. I really think they trained each other.
Yeah,
I think they became
did.
best
They
buddies.
compared notes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they compared stares.
yeah.
I think they shared mirrors, honestly.
Mhm.
So I truly think that's what's going on here. But it doesn't. I'm sorry, Anakin. It's not real enough.
Yeah,
You got to get Peter Sarsgaard to play Anakin next time
yeah,
on the reboots. Okay.
yeah.
But anyway, so they go after the little hotel conference event center, whatever it is. They go across the street to the restaurant, and right away Chuck sees it. He's walking up to the restaurant, and they're open. Was it Monday through Sunday, 7 to 3? So they close at 3 p.m.
Mhm.
And supposedly they had dinner at this restaurant. So Chuck's like, you had dinner here at this restaurant, and Steven's like, yeah, right here. I saw it all. I was here. Here. And
Yeah, he's
Chuck's
getting real whiny at this point.
yeah, very
This is-
Anakin-like.
Yeah, one of the things he does best.
Yeah, his voice is just the perfect
Yeah.
wine. I
Yeah.
mean, it's just fine wine.
Yeah.
And so he starts. You can see he's starting to get flustered. He's got those Anakin angry eyes.
Yeah.
Where the same as the stare you're talking
Yeah,
about.
if you're not with me, you're against me. That kind of.
Yes.
Yeah.
The same stare.
Yeah.
He's got it here. Okay.
Mhm.
He's got the same. You were supposed to destroy the Sith, not join
Yeah.
them. They're
Yeah.
the same stare.
I see through the lies of the Jedi.
Okay, that's what he's got right here. So
Yeah.
if you can picture it, okay. But and he's got the heavy breathing. I think it's the same. I think they CG'd this scene into Empire, or not Empire. Did I say Empire?
You
Revenge.
said
I
Empire.
think. I really think they CGI'd it because it's the same. It's the same face, the same heavy breathing. He's giving him that stare, like, "Oh crap, I'm mad because
Yeah.
you caught me." So I'm gonna get. He's not getting defensive. And
Ask
Chuck's
them if
like,
they would serve 10 people at 258, because they
Yes.
would.
yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, we came here 2:58, and it was an early dinner, basically.
Ian looked like he was about ready to cry,
Yeah.
like I do right now.
How many?
Huh?
People at the dinner, how many?
About 10, I think, including me. Ian even put on a jacket.
Hyatt was there too?
Yeah,
Is it near here?
yeah, it's across the street.
Good, let's cross the street.
I really don't like the way you're treating me, Chuck. It's like you won't even talk to me.
This is the place.
Yes. I didn't do anything wrong, okay? I didn't do anything wrong. You saw my notes, everything was in there. I got tricked. I got fooled, I'm sorry. What are you being so mad for?
It was 10 people
Yes,
for dinner.
yes.
They're closed at 3 on Sundays.
Yeah, I know. I know, they almost didn't let us in. Okay, but it was a couple of minutes before 3, and Ian looked like he was about ready to cry, and so they said okay.
But for dinner?
You go in and ask him yourself, Chuck. Okay, go in and see if they would serve a party that came in at 2:58, and the answer would be yes, because that's when we got here.
The Forbes guys are going to have all this too, and they're going to
I
dig
didn't
through
do
the
anything
records
wrong,
at
Chuck.
that office building. Okay, I'm sure they have surveillance cameras, and they're going to check them.
I didn't do anything wrong, Chuck.
I really wish you'd stop saying that.
If you're not with me, then you're my enemy.
Steve. Come on, anyone can make a mistake.
You know, this is not right, Chuck. Okay, I feel really attacked. And you're my editor. You're supposed to support me, and you're taking their word against mine? You're supposed to support me.
I have failed you, Anakin. I have failed you. I should have known the Jedi were plotting to take over. Anakin, Chancellor Palpatine is evil. From my point of view, the Jedi are evil. Well, then you are lost.
And yada yada yada. Yeah. So then Obi-Wan jumps. I mean, sorry, it was wrong.
Now we're talking about Star Wars. This was a two-parter, guys.
Yes.
Bet you weren't
Revenge
prepared for
of
that
the
plot
Blast.
twist.
Revenge of the Glass.
Now you know why we like this movie so much.
Because it's the same movie. It's just better. So Chuck is like, they close at 3:00, dude. Like, come on. So Anakin is basically, Stephen Glass is getting defensive, and he's starting to cry and get angry.
Yeah.
And he's like, and it's funny because Chuck decides to give him an out here, and I don't know if you noticed this. It's very subtle, but he decides to give him a little. He throws him a bone. There we go. He throws him a bone and says, what does he say? It's something like everyone makes mistakes, or we can. It's easy to make a mistake, something like that. And so instead of taking.
Yeah, to that point, we glanced over it, but right after the conference call scene with Forbes, he calls up Forbes and he's like, "Listen, this is just a kid that's made a mistake." You know,
right.
You really see that this is a guy who, even though Stephen Glass doesn't think he's very defensive of his writers, he was trying to cut this guy a break. He didn't want to see his career ruined.
Right. So he throws him a bone again. I mean, he really is, and this is a perfect example of anti-hero, and because Chuck Lane at the beginning is brought out as the bad guy, and in reality he's obviously the good guy in all of this, because he's trying to help him out, but at the same time you can't put up with this, right? So he throws him a bone, and instead Stephen Glass gets more defensive, and basically he doesn't like it, and he doesn't like being attacked. He feels attacked. I think he even says that, why are you attacking me, Chuck? Right, exactly. Yeah, so they get defensive, and so Chuck's had it because he's just building lie upon lie upon lie. So they drive home, and Steven's driving. Not a good idea, right. But almost gets to an accident. So they make him pull over. Chuck makes him pull over, and he's like, I just want the truth. And
he's
Steven's
like, level with me here.
Yeah. So Steven's like, okay, I wasn't there, but my sources duped me.
But
so
Chuck,
he's still lying.
Yeah, Chuck Lane talks about this scene in real life, and this was a scene that, for the sake of cinema, they give it to us as if it's two people sitting right next to each other having this conversation. I believe this was email conversation. It might have been over the phone, but it wasn't in person. But it is very accurate in terms of what was said. So Stephen Glass tells him, "I messed up. I got fooled. But if you want me to say I made the whole thing up, I will." And Chuck Lane says, "I saw that as a trap. I felt like he was going to, like, if I had told him, yeah, you need to say you made this whole thing up, he's going to try to make people believe I forced him to say that." So he says, "The whole time I was trying to remain very even-handed with him. I didn't want to tip my hand emotionally as to which way I was leaning because he was going to take it and run." So what he does say is, like you said, he just says, "I just want the truth."
And he still doesn't give it to him.
Yeah.
I mean, really, he's not going to. Mm-hmm. He's not going to ever admit it at this point. To make a long story short, I think he ends up suspending him because of this story. Yep. He ends up making it up. But this was not just one story. He made up, do you have the numbers here? He made up the vast majority of the stories he wrote.
So I guess kind of like wrapping up the film, they do realize that eventually that this was a completely fabricated story. It wasn't just that he got fooled. And so Chuck Lane starts looking into all of his articles. And again, like you said, long story short, they found out that they could confirm that 27 of the 41 articles that he wrote from 1995 to 1998, which is when he was writing at New Republic, 27 of the 41 articles were fabricated, at least partially or completely.
Yeah. So this is the very end of the movie, and basically he fires Steven. He's basically telling him to get out. The reason why Chuck, actually, it shows in the movie, and I don't know if this is true, this part in particular, I know the scene itself did happen, but Chuck basically starts reading.
Yeah.
And a lot of these stories have the same pattern, and that they're very fantastical and probably not true. So he decides to just fire Steven. And Steven's just crying and threatening suicide, basically, which is what a pathological liar probably would do. And he's not buying any of it. I mean, Chuck is, you mentioned stoic. Here, he's being stoic. He's not taking, he's done taking his garbage.
Yeah.
He's done taking it. He's like, just get out. You're not falling for any of that. Which is a great realistic portrayal. I think he's not gonna feel bad. He's not feeling sorry for him at this point, just because the real Chuck Lane, he mentioned He quoted this, and I think this is the perfect. This epitomizes really the way he viewed Stephen Glass at this point. He said that it could be sunny outside, clear as day. You could see it yourself. Stephen Glass could come in and tell you it's sunny outside, and he would still go in and have to triple and quadruple check to make sure he wasn't lying on the
Wow. Wow.
So that's Stephen Glass for you.
Yeah.
And so the movie ends basically with him being fired, and some other filler, some other stuff. Go watch the movie. It's really great and very accurate. A lot of the scenes were, a lot of it was, the dialogue was pretty spot on to what actually was said, and it's just a great example of a movie that was factually accurate and very well done, very engaging.
It had a very journalistic approach to it too, where it was trying to tell an accurate story, unlike what Stephen Glass did. So it was kind of a contrast there.
Yeah, and I found this. It was the AV Club. It's in 2009. They released their list of the top performances of the decade, and Peter Sarsgaard as playing his portrayal of Chuck Lane was number 6 on the list of the best performances of all time, regardless male, female, supporting, lead role. That's their list, and they go through top 20 actually. So his was number 6. I'd put it at number 1, but you know what? The fact that it's being recognized, I appreciate that. I speak on behalf of Peter Sarsgaard here. So, yeah, and then you could say that if you've seen like Green Lantern, don't compare his performance in that to who he is as an actor. Watch this movie. Same thing with don't look at Star Wars and say that's all Hayden Christensen's capable of. Don't look at movies like Green Lantern and say that's all Peter Sarsgaard's capable of.
Just don't look at movies like Green Lantern.
In general, yeah, for anything.
Yeah.
So the movie doesn't really go into this because it came out fairly recent to the events that transpired in the movie. So I understand, Aaron, that you have some fun facts as to what happened after these events. Some updates, maybe.
Yeah. So I guess one of the big ones. So Stephen Glass, they mention it during the film. At the time he was writing for New Republic, he was also going to law school. His parents wanted him to be a lawyer, so it was kind of like a secondary career for him. Incidentally, when the story broke about all of his fabrications, there were character issues with him that prevented him from getting his law degree. So even right now, he does work as, I guess, technically a paralegal. He does work at a law firm, but he has been unable to finish what he needs to do to actually become a lawyer just because of character issues. Even after what happened, he did do some writing. I know he wrote one article specifically for Rolling Stones as a journalist. But even then, because he's been trying to finish up what he needs to do to become a lawyer, in 2016, I guess he had to come clean about some other articles that he fabricated, make sure it was all on the table. So this is aside from the 27 articles he wrote from the New Republic.
Right.
Because he was also a contributing writer to a lot of different magazines, George, Harper's. So
big ones.
Yeah. So he did come clean about one article that he wrote for Harper's called Profits and Losses. Prophets. Profits and Losses. Clever wordplay. In which he told the story of how he posed as a telephone psychic. And
yes. Okay, so he actually his interview, they interview him on that. He tells the story in a radio interview. It's on YouTube, but he tells the story of him. This is before it came out as a lie, where he's actually talking about it, and I actually listened to it back when I was doing research for our fantastic article that we had written about. Do you remember the name of it? It was Tainted Glass.
I think it was Shattered Glass, to be honest.
No. It was Tainted. We didn't want it to be the same as the movie.
I don't.
So
know.
we were like, what's similar to Shattered? So we started brainstorming. We were like, Tainted.
Thesaurus.com.
Tainted Glass. That's the name of the article we wrote.
Tainted Glass. Why are we talking about this again?
Oh, sorry. So you're saying about the psychic thingy, the
Yeah.
radio psychic?
Yeah. No, so he just basically came out. That was an article that he wrote in again 1998 that he just now came out and admitted was completely fabricated.
Well, I think before that, people had kind of figured that was a kind of not true.
Yeah, I mean, he had nothing to lose by coming out and saying that it was fabricated. But interestingly, Chuck Lane talks about why the lies of Stephen Glass were so believable. And he talks about one, New Republic was an opinion magazine, so they could form their own opinion on what they were writing. It didn't have to be black and white. You know, there was gray area that was available. But he said that Stephen Glass always wrote stories about things that were happening in secret, like things that would happen in a basement or a hotel room at a Democratic convention. You know, these were things that people, unless you were in that social structure, you were not going to be there to verify. So that was another thing. It would just be hard to second guess it. And he said he also worked a lot with stereotypes, which I thought was a very interesting observation. That Stephen Glass would say things that weren't necessarily what people wanted to believe, but things that people were ready to believe. You know, like socially, we would accept it because they already carry that stereotype. So it wasn't hard to believe what he was saying. So I just thought those were some interesting observations on why these lies worked so well.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. It was like the perfect storm until
it
came
wasn't.
out with Hack Heaven, until it blew up, until
it was a little
so
bit
popular.
too extreme. A little bit too extreme.
Too good to be true, right?
Yep.
So that's that story. Just some little background notes and facts that I have. Did you talk about this? Stephen Glass wrote a book called The Fabulist.
The Fabulist.
Basically,
controversial. Very controversial.
Basically, the story of what happened, but in a fabricated kind of way. Very ironic. But
it's fictional. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fictional take on his fiction.
Yeah.
So, he actually received $190,000 in advance for the novel, but it was a commercial failure. It sold
much
less
like
than
the movie.
5,000 copies.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, go into that. So what happened with the movie?
I don't know. I mean, I
have no idea.
I was a child when this movie came out. Obviously, I saw it a lot later.
I had a child when this movie. No, I'm kidding.
No. So the movie had a budget of $6 million, but it only grossed roughly $3 million. So it was a loss. We talked about this a little bit before. I think we both agree most of the budget probably went to the cast, which rightly so. I mean, this movie would not be nearly as good as it was without the compelling performances of the cast. Because if you don't have those performances, all you have is a relatively decent story about what happened with the journalist. You know.
Oh yeah, with this one, you got to be able to bring the story to life.
Yeah.
To get people to be interested.
Yeah, and so I mean the movie didn't do too well financially, but you know, it was kind of like an indie project. I don't know what their hopes were for it financially. Obviously, I assume they wanted to at least break even, but yep. About the novel. It was interesting that Stephen Glass would do something like that. Chuck Lane says that he did not appreciate the novel at all for two reasons. One, he said that he felt like he painted the people that exposed Stephen, because the main character in The Fabulist is Stephen Glass. That's his name.
Mm-hmm.
So this is very much a fictional retelling of what happened with Stephen Glass. And so Chuck Lane says that even though the editors in that story did not have our names, he's like, we could tell who he was basing these characters off of. And he says he felt like they were not painted in a very good light for exposing what he did. And he says the second reason he didn't appreciate it is because he felt like it contradicted his so-called remorse.
Right.
Stephen Glass came out and he apologized for all this. He said that he felt extremely guilty. Oh, I did terrible things. And Chuck Lane just says that this novel would not be an indication of that. Basically, you're trying to justify it.
Right.
Why somebody who did these...
Try to get people to sympathize with you.
Exactly, yeah.
So some other little fun facts here. Here's one. So the director Billy Ray, the director and screenwriter, more so a screenwriter.
Yeah, you would not know him
known
from
for.
anything directorially.
Yeah, except for this one.
Yeah.
But before Shattered Glass, I'll just go through some of his movies. I'm sure people will know him. In '97, he wrote the screenplay for Volcano with Tommy Lee Jones, which is a disaster movie. He wrote the movie Flight Plan 2005 with Jodie Foster. He wrote and directed the movie Breach with Chris Cooper. Wrote the screenplay for Hunger Games.
Yep.
Wrote the screenplay for Captain Phillips with Tom Hanks.
Probably my favorite on the list. I think that would be probably the pinnacle of his career. Is
Yeah.
Captain Phillips' screenplay.
Well, Hunger Games and Captain Phillips were back to back, so I mean those are.
That's true, and I guess
big-
some people would make an argument for Hunger Games, but for my taste, it's Captain
Right.
Phillips. Yeah.
In 2015, not a super successful movie critically or commercially, but he wrote and directed Secret in Their Eyes with Julia Roberts, which is a thriller. He wrote the movie Overlord, which is supposed to be part of the Cloverfield, I guess, cinematic universe. I never saw it, but
The CCU.
yes, this is, yes, that universe. And then lately, 2019, he wrote the screenplay for Gemini Man with Will Smith and co-starring Will Smith, and then the latest Terminator movie, and then he wrote the screenplay for Richard Jewell. Talented guy, apparently.
Yeah.
He's got some credentials here. But yeah, Shattered Glass was what a ride. What a ride. It's a great movie. I guarantee most of you listening have not seen it, and you need to. I don't know why you're not watching it right now, but you need to.
Because they're listening to you.
Yes, because they need to listen to me. You have anything else to add?
Absolutely not.
So, I think that's about it. Stephen Glass died just last year. No, I'm kidding. He's still alive. One person that did pass away was Michael Kelly.
Poor Michael Kelly. Tragically.
The original head editor at the beginning of the movie.
Right, not the actor.
Right. The guy played by Hank Azaria. He passed away.
Covering a story.
Yeah, he was a
Covering a
journalist.
story in Iraq.
Yeah, and he died in Iraq in 2003, same year the movie was released.
Actually, before the movie was released,
Yeah.
I think it was April, right? That he was
Mhm.
tragically killed, and the movie came out in August.
Yeah, and it was not dedicated to him.
No.
So I think that's about it. If you have any questions, concerns.
No, that was a
comments.
great note to end it on. Good job.
Yes, very happy note. I think we should always end it on a happy note. So I think that's about it. And wow, that was a long episode. I'm gonna have a lot of editing to do. So me and Logan have this favorite. We have our own catchphrases for when we sign off.
Do you?
Yes, Logan always says it's looks like it's my bedtime.
Oh, I didn't know that was a catchphrase.
Well, he says it in every single episode. I don't know if anyone's picked up on that yet.
No, yeah, obviously I picked up on it. I don't know what time you guys normally do these things, though.
It varies greatly, but it takes out so much of his energy. He has to go to bed right after.
I know your catchphrase, I feel like, needs some condensing.
Why? I think it's genius.
I think
it's very thoughtful and
I
kind
think it's almost as long as the actual show.
and considerate. And I think it addresses every listener in an equal and fair way. So I have no problems with my sign off. So go ahead, come up with something on the spot. Let's see what you got.
All right, goodbye, everybody.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
Absolutely. Godsmack.